called Leonard Katete, son of Walungama. I'm a Ugandan-born artist who have been in Kenya for over 42 years. I started off as an artist. Then I deviated from being a teacher. 1994, and when I was an art teacher, I trained as an artist at the university, did a diploma in art education. Then I came to Kenya in 1980, taught art from 82 to 94. Then went back to being an artist with a project which I did under the sponsorship of the Nation Group, which took me to visit various tribal or other communities in Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, a bit of Sudan, and I did one from Ethiopia recently. Yes, and on top of that, I've been doing quite a bit of religious art, either on canvas, on wall, sculpture, mosaics, stained glass. I've done all that.
Tell us about that project, the one that you're doing. What was the concept behind that project?
I would say it was coincidental or accidental, because it was just a drive from town going back to Msongari. Then I saw this couple with their kids dressed in the Samburu Rendile regalia, very colorful, very nice beads. So I turned at the roundabout in Westlands, went back to to that wall next to Consolata community. Stopped, had a chat with them. I asked them if they could pose for me. They accepted after some convincing. I told them I would meet them, I'd be picking them and taking them to my house every day for about 14 days. And needing them for only an hour and a half. They accepted. Of course, I was paying them for each day they were coming. It was in March, but 1992, 200 shillings was a lot of money. So I was paying them that every day until I first started off with the Rendile. And then the others got so impressed, they said, paint us as well. So I painted them. But then after, I said, this is beautiful. What if I did this for every community in East Africa, Central and Southern Africa? I think it would be a great collection and something to be proud of. So I, with the help of a cousin, came up with a proposal. I wasn't a good seller because I sat on it for almost 2.5 years, until I was called by the MD of the Nation Group. Because like I said, it was coincidental or something, because he didn't know about the project. So I went, he told me, oh, by the way, we would like to decorate our house, this new one, what do you suggest? Then I said, well, the galleries are full of paintings and curious shops. It's a matter of walking there and buy whatever you want. Otherwise, I have this proposal which has something to do with culture. If you buy this one, I'll be able to give you what you want. Place this one, I don't think you'll be wasting your time with me, because I'll not sit down and start painting for the whole building. I said, okay, we'll get back to you. Then that was 1995 early. Then it was 1994 early. Then around October, that's when the chairman called me once again, told him the same story. He said, okay, can you make a proposal? I showed it to him, and then after some discussions, we agreed. He said, we like the project, but he said, my position can only allow me to authorize so much. If you can fit within that, instead of waiting for the board of directors and that kind of stuff, then we are good to go. Since my quest then was not about money, what I wanted was to paint people so as to get our own collection, our own story, with our own hands. Me, because before that was Joe Adamson who did it. And so 1995 January I started. I remember I went to Gachie. That's where I did the first couple, and then from there I went down to Motitambei. Did another couple where Kamba. Then when I brought the two paintings, they said, no, these are enlightened. We want the ones that are still whatever, still we shall go, material. Yeah. So that's when now I switched from, I finished those two. Then I went down to Ndeia, where I found Mr. Kimani Wamatindi, the grandfather of this Wamatindi. The governor or something like that. Then I went to Machakos, place called Katangi. That's where I met that old Kamba man, because I could not get an elderly Kamba couple because they hardly exist. And then I went on from there to various other places. Sudan, I could not go because there was trouble in southern Sudan. I met them at Kapuna refugee camp, Kataso, the United Nations, the refugee whatever. And Tanzania, that one I was able to go there. I did the Arusha. Then I did my uncle in Uganda. I think my uncle in Uganda and the Karamojong, those came after, because after 2 years, for some reasons, they stopped the project. But with the money that they had paid me, I tried to continue. That's when I went to Karamoja, I went to my home village. I went to Mount Kilimanjaro with the Wapare and the Chaga. Then went down to Dodoma with the Gogos, and then from there I went to a place called Didia, just a few kilometers from Sinyanga with the Wasukuma. And then when I came back, when I was there was a nun who told me, oh, by the way, there is a Kalenjin tribe here in Kenya, in Tanzania. They are quite traditional, so you could visit them. So she gave me a name of a priest who was very much who had gotten used to them, and I think was like an misery with the government. So I came back here, and then when I was through the Karamojong, I drove down to Arusha, left my car there, took a bus to that place called it was after Sinyanga. But a few kilometers after Arusha, the roads had a bridge had been swept. That was the onset of the El Nino. It was just the place where that happened was opposite Lake Manyara. But after 6 hours of digging the bus out, because we did a detour, and the bus got stuck in a temporary whatever, the seasonal river. Yeah. So we left that point at around 7 in the evening, arrived where I was going at midnight. The person who was supposed to see, I didn't have anything like a letter, I only had a name. When I was taken there, he was not willing to take me in because I was not sure whether I was a thug or whatever. So I went, slept in the shopkeeper's store with a Maasai guard and planks of wood. And the following day, I managed to go back, as he had requested that I go back the following day. We had tea, and I told him the purpose of my visit. Then, as usual, God makes his arrangements, and he never goes wrong. The fellow told me, I cannot just go and tell the people that there's a guy here who wants to paint you, because I had gone with my paints and canvases and so on. Yeah. So he told me, what you do, you go back to Nairobi, write a letter, then once I've convinced them and they have accepted, I'll invite you. The moment I arrived in Russia, it rained. They call them cats and dogs, and all the bridges were swept. So it was like he saved me from being stuck in that area for months. So I came back to Nairobi, and the bridges and roads were swept in many places. And so I waited now for the rain to stop, which took almost 10 months or to 1 year. By that time, money was, I had run out of funds, but the church somehow had picked me up. So I started doing work for the church. Now this, I kept on dreaming about it since 1997 up to 2001. It was 2000, the lockdown was when? 2000. So 2001, that's when I met a gentleman from New Zealand. We met in a gym. You know, we sort of greeted each other, and he asked me where I used. I said, oh, I'm in Serengeti. I said, oh, I used to stay there. So we could, let's catch up later. So we got talking a number of times. Then he commissioned me to paint his portrait. Then he asked me so much about my life as an artist. Then out of the blue he says, but I think we can get you restarted, I can try and look for some means that will get you to complete your dream. So he was able to help me to restart and to launch the website, or rather what call it, the trustee and the Katete Trust Pan-African Art Trust, which will be possibly officially launched towards the end of the month or early next month.
That's fantastic. So have you completed the entire project, or are you still in
the dream, when actually the first proposal I wrote, I was supposed to do 80 communities. Then I was calling them tribes, 80 tribes. Some people have a problem with tribes because it becomes political. So that was my dream. By the time the project was stopped, I had done 22. And I think it had come up to 26. When I set out, I think it came to 32. Now, with the onset of the assumption of the project, there's no number limit. And because of what happened, because initially I was just painting couples. Now there came, you just can't paint couples and forget where they come from. When I started this time putting the element of their surroundings, so that is their homes. And I also put in the element of the extension of the family, the generation to come after the ones that are painted. That's when I went in for the grandchild. Yes. Now we've added in another element of something that is unique to that community, like the bush with the thorns, the camels, the goats, ng'ombe soon, and so on and so forth.
And the way you talk about them, you're so intimate with your paintings, and that you can even remember all of them and the situation where you took them. How personal and how is your process?
Initially, I wanted to paint, yes. But when I started painting, I started looking at what I was doing I look at it much more than just painting, because I was just finding myself, appreciating what I am, and the diversity in what I'm meant to be, an African, black. But I also looked at it from the cultural point of view. You see, somebody would have possibly gathered ushangas from all over the place and those type of people to make them look like me. What I was taking is what my subjects wear. If it's one ushanga, that's what they wear. If they don't have, they don't wear. I'll give you an example of the Lugbara where I went. I asked him, what was your traditional dress? He said, for us we used to walk around free. And then they found themselves under the Arabs before Africa was divided up. After which the Belgians ruled them. And then the English decided to buy that area of theirs. And now they became under the British rule under Uganda, because initially they were Sudanese. Then they became DRC fellows, Congolese, and now they're Ugandans. So what I did was to dress him into what we would call the contemporary, traditional, or Ugandan attire, which is the kanzu.
Another thing about the art, you said that you're now moving to more religious art.
It has gone concurrently with the project. In fact, it seems as if whatever happened around the same time, because it was when actually the story does not start from religious or that project. It starts with a great character, Mandela. Because when I started teaching in Loreto Convent in Msongari, for certain reasons, I was slow in practicing art. I gave all that I would have put on canvas, the ideas to the students. And then came the day when it was rumored or foretold that Mandela is going to be released in a few days' time. Then my principal, who was a Ugandan-born British, who studied in South Africa, very much anti-apartheid, called a staff meeting and proposed that when Mandela is released, we have a Mandela Day, we celebrate. So one of the teachers proposed is, why don't Mr. Kateta ask his students to make a few drawings of Mandela to decorate the hall. So I said, yeah, I will ask them, but I will also try and do one. That's how I ended up doing that painting, the copy you see inside there. Now, after giving it to him on 1st of July, you see the date, I think it was 7th or 1st of July 1990. There is something that sort of built into me. Suddenly, I became, the art in me came back, and that's when now I painted those people. And then, of course, the events I've already narrated how it all started. But the same year when I painted the Samburus and the Turkanas, and the Rendiles, there is a gentleman who was repairing pianos. He had gone to repair a piano for a certain lady who had health issues, but used the art as a therapy. Because she had said, can you find me an art teacher to come and help me to paint my ceramics? So he came, said, by the way, can you go and is it possible? It's a job, you do it on weekends. So I went and started painting, helping her paint, work together. Then friends came visiting. Before I knew, I was teaching other housewives, and one of them prepared an art exhibition, and he used my paintings for the exhibition with her signature. Then the priests from Don Bosco Upper Hill had attended that exhibition. They liked what she exhibited, so they asked her if she could go to Don Bosco Upper Hill to give them an idea of what she should put into the shrine. Then when she went, she told them, look, I know you've called me, but I think I would rather you invite my professor. I think he's a better person. So I was called. They said, okay, we want you to preparing this church, we want this, we want mosaics, we want whatever. Then I told, yeah, I think I can. But then they were a little bit shrewd, because the church was due in about 2 years' time. That was just developing the idea. They said, okay, so escort us to Moshi. So we went to Moshi. There was a seminary which was, the construction was still going on. They said, oh, we want a painting for that inside the church. So I got my first real major commission. A lot of money. 140,000 shillings. I was getting a salary of 6,000 shillings. So I started off like that, did that big mural. I did the altar. They took me down to my finger. I did quite a number of things. Then the Canossians also picked me up. I did some work for them. In fact, you find that painting inside the house of the Basilica. So, religious art and this tribal thing all sprang up or sprouted at the same time. Because I've done a lot of religious art as well.
So finally, can you tell us something a little bit about the painting behind it?
Oh, I'm one of the few artists who have spearheaded the story of the Bible in an African perspective. I do it with the knowledge, well, it was told that the story of Christianity and the story of Christ is more related to Africa than Europe or elsewhere, because when we read in the Bible the story of Joseph, then Moses, Abraham, it all sprang up from Africa. And then the Jesus time, when the kids were being persecuted, he ran to Africa and the parents took him to Africa. In fact, he was there until he was a small boy. He is carrying his cross. Who helps him? Simon, an African. So I think it's in order for us to tell that story in an African way, because even the Mexicans are telling it in their Mexican way. The Indians in India, they also tell it here. So there was this project when the late Bishop Lavazi was, came up with this dream of the shrine in Marsabit. He wanted, to have the journey of faith painted in an African concept. So I remember initially we were about 6 of us. Somebody in Europe was a half African. We were 3, and then about 2 or 3 others joined us. And it was finished, but some space was left, which was actually meant to be for me. Then a couple of months back, I think it was last year, the President Bishop Kihara invited me to try and complete what I was meant to have done before the death of Bishop Lavazi. Now, the part of the story in the Bible was supposed to be one representing the women in the Bible. That's where we went for Esther. Behind the Esther is the first miracle. Yes. It's finished, so now I'm just doing this one on top. After that, I'll remove them and take them. So, it's my interpretation of the Esther story in a Marsabit setting and in the culture of the Gabra. That's why you see a Gabra chief who's representing the king and a Gabra lady who's representing the queen, because the Gabras have that thing they wear, which is a crown, and of course the Gabra Manyata. And the typical food of the Ethiopians, injera, and the coffee.